Kia ora koutou, this is Larissa here from Magical Moon Astrology in Aotearoa. Just here to talk to you about the full moon that's coming up tomorrow in the sign of Libra. And so that will be April the 6th, Wednesday, April the 6th at 4:34 Aotearoa time, New Zealand. So basically a full moon in Libra is very much about relationships. The sign of Libra is very important to connect and to be interacting. It's an incredibly social sign, and it's very interested in social justice and balancing the scales. So yeah, there's a flavour there of being able to get on well with people. It's very relationally motivated, and so it's important with Libran energy to be able to get out and about and socialize and connect with other people. It's really important to who they are in the world. If you know any Libras, they really care about their friends. And relationships and connection are really important to them. Also, they're very values driven, very considered in what's important to them. Libra's ruled by the planet Venus, and so Venus is it also rules the sign of Taurus, but Venus in relation to Libra, it is, like I said, it's about relationships, it's about connection, it's about beauty. So you may be noticing at the moment that you're a bit more interested in your aesthetic or art or like painting or music or dance, or you might find yourself wanting to go and visit an art gallery or to start practicing some of your own art. Venus is a very creative planet. It gets us in touch potentially with maybe our more feminine side, which is perhaps sort of more receptive and intuitive and very much about paying close attention. I guess like it's just the association with there's a pleasing element to it. Like Libra is very interested in getting on well and with others and being seen in a really good light. It doesn't necessarily enjoy conflict, though it understands that it's important to be able to unpack things. So there's a lot of associations with I guess diplomacy and I'm just trying to think, like even that idea of like restorative practices and relational practices and things like that comes out of like a Libran way of thinking. Libra is, rules like counseling and things like that. So it's been able to enhance our relationships in anything that's going to do that. But this full moon is interesting. The planet Venus, which is the ruler of this full moon, has been in conjunction, which means it's sitting right alongside. But it's been moving away. So Venus has been right alongside the planet Uranus, and so when Venus and Uranus come together, sparks fly, I guess. So there might be like a tendency to be feeling sort of very like excited and like looking for something like a bit of a rush or a bit of a hit. I think, and I mean like in terms of like connecting with other people, like especially over the last week when Venus and Uranus were very close together. I think that it brings like spontaneity and maybe like unique and kind of eccentric experiences. It also, I think this full moon is very much about getting in touch with our unusual or quirky or kind of eccentric side. Like just really kind of rolling with what feels good. I think that's really important, like just sort of like unashamed self-expression. It's really interesting, Libra and energy, it's in opposition to Aries. It's which is Aries is much more about the individual. It's a pioneering sign. It's the warrior. So it's the, I guess like they call it sort of like a masculine sign. It's a cardinal sign. So it's very active. I mean, Libra is cardinal as well. So it's an initiating energy. It might be about, I guess like getting in touch with, you know, if there's projects that you've been wanting to get underway. I think like since the equinox on March 21st, the energy is really started to move forward. And in a way, it's more like the new year. The astrological new year is the equinox on 21st of March. And so a lot of the planets that were retrograde, moving backwards earlier in the year, have all started moving forwards. Like Pluto's moved into Aquarius, so there's been a real shift of energy there. You might be noticing maybe more grassroots movements are more public at the moment. I know that my involvement in Aotearoa and my interest in protecting and my alliance alongside our transgender communities has been really, really important. I think that this kind of Aries energy has really brought a real fire and a real spirit, a real warrior kind of energy to the movement. I think that it's more than a movement. This is about people's lives, and it's really, really important to me. And I think, I guess, like at the time when the protests were happening a couple of weeks ago, there was a sort of like I think that Aries energy was a real catalyst. It's very, you know, get out there and get stuff done. It's like it doesn't kind of muck around. It's very assertive, and it knows what it needs to say and what it needs to do. And I absolutely resonated with that. And it's fascinating then having this kind of full moon in Libra, which is very relational and diplomatic, but it's also about social justice. So I think that it's a really potent time in terms of bringing, you know, the truth to the fore, you know, and what is important, and what is the best thing for everybody. And that's what Libra does. It's like, it's very considered. It's sort of, you know, it can be accused of struggling to make decisions and things like that. And I think it's because it really does like to weigh things up and make sure that it's doing the right thing. It's very more, you know, there's a process involved in there, whereas Aries is just gung-ho, just running in there and doing and saying, you know, the first thing that comes to mind, perhaps not so strategic, but it's also just brave and courageous. So, you know, we need these polarities. That's actually what brings us into balance, is being able to get in touch with these parts of ourselves, which often can feel like they're in conflict. But we need to be able to explore and examine these kinds of energies. The other thing that's sort of interesting at the moment, I guess, with is the planet Mercury. It's in Taurus at the moment, and you know, Taurus is quite a slow moving. It's quite a slow sign. It takes ages to make up its mind. It's the next sign after Aries, and it's Aries is like a mile a minute, and then you come into Taurus, and it's like, right, what is the practical side of this? What are the steps that I need to take to build and to create, you know, whatever the direction it is that it's choosing to take. So the planet Mercury is there at the moment, and so our thinking might sort of be a little bit more kind of slowed down, and sometimes we might feel a little bit kind of stuck. But it's also very creative, so it can sort of, because it's ruled by Venus, and so it can sort of like bring, you know, like a more pleasurable way of communicating, you know, like there's a sensuality to it. I don't know, for want of a better description. But anyway, what I'm trying to say, which is very Mercury and Taurus, just taking forever to explain what it is that I want to say, is that Mercury is square, and has been for the last few days, has been square the planet Pluto. Now, Pluto has a very transformative, potentially like destructive, breaking down, phoenix rising from the ashes kind of effect on whatever it interacts with. So I guess what I'm trying to say, just notice your thinking. Like, I think with Pluto square to Mercury, it can really, you know, we can be overthinking and overanalyzing, and because Pluto wants to dig, you know, and so if we think about Mercury is our communication and it's our thinking style, and so, you know, we might have a tendency to be feeling particularly obsessive at the moment. Or the way I see it, you know, I'm a counsellor, so I'm really into this, is it gives us an opportunity to examine our thoughts, like what are our patterns that come up, and every single one of us will have particular patterns of thinking that recur over and over again in our lives, depending on, I guess, the catalysts or the experiences that we have. And so, you know, we don't have like an endless, I mean, we do have an endless number of thoughts that we have, but we will have patterns that we've experienced for years and years on end. So I really encourage you to, you know, if you want to do some work on this, it's a really powerful thing to be able to do, to be able to kind of break down and tune into and understand what our core beliefs are, and that then affect our thinking. And so, yeah, so we're able to be able, you know, to get a bit more of a handle on, I guess, some of the themes that might come up for us. And it can be a really liberating thing to be able to do. It's sort of easier to do it with a therapist, but if you're interested in doing something like that, like cognitive behavioral therapy, there's lots of things online, like resources online, which help us to be able to reality check and understand, you know, some of our thoughts a bit more easily, which like I said, can be really empowering. What else do I want to say? With the full moon, there might be like a you know, there's like a healing element to it, like there is that's available to us because the asteroid Chiron is sitting really close to the sun at the moment. It has been over the last week, and so therefore it's opposite the full moon, and so Chiron really gets us in touch with our wounding. And being in Aries, the wounding is potentially, so I don't want to say often because it can be interpreted really broadly, but with Chiron in Aries, it's the wounding of our identity and our personality and our self. You know, Aries is all about the self. It's the very self-involved kind of sign. It's you know, developmentally, like it rules the sign at the age of like babies, because it's like, who am I in the world, and how do I experience the world? And it can be very vulnerable and naive in some ways. And having Chiron there is bringing us in touch very much with that identity wounding. And so, so it's kind of interesting, I guess, like around, you know, potentially the stuff that's been happening for, you know, in Aotearoa, and some of the comments and things like that have been made about our transgender whānau, and it's and I think that now's a real time for our communities to be really digging in, our allies. It's really important that we take action, that we stand up for what's right, and that's Aries. That's what we do. That's what we're here to do. It is really important, and I'm not going to cry, so I'll do that later. But and I think that kind of energy might come in as well, and also having Jupiter nearby, you know, Jupiter and Chiron and the Sun are all sitting together in opposition to this full moon. And Jupiter actually brings a lot of good luck. It brings us faith in the future. It brings us good fortune, you know, and optimism. And it's the most, it's a very positive sign. And it really helps us access and tune into our beliefs. And so I think that, you know, there's a sense, this infusion of like goodwill and belief in maybe a higher purpose or a higher vision or something like that will be part of this full moon. I think that's pretty much all I want to say about it. It is a pretty chaotic time, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I know that a lot of astrology talks about that consistently, but there's just so many big things that are happening and that have been happening, and I think this Aries energy can be pretty full on and fiery, and, you know, do something with it, take some action, go out for a run, go out and do some intense exercise, or do something intense, like something that it might be like moving your body in some way, you know, like Aries is very like it's very warrior, you know, it needs action and movement and things like that. But this Libran full moon, you know, like will bring us perhaps a sense of peace as well. And the other thing that's really cool and good, like I often reference in my videos, is the process of the full moon is about letting go and releasing. And so it can be really interesting to look back to the previous 6 months. So that would have been the new moon in Libra, which would have been in October of last year, seeing what was happening then, because that during that new moon and when those intentions were set or whatever the themes were in your life could be playing out right now during the full moon in Libra. So it's just a fascinating cycle to follow, and I really encourage you to do that. And if you want to have a reading with me, get in touch. I can give you a lot more information around how the moons can affect, the cycle of the moons can affect us in relation to our own personal natal chart. So yeah, please get in touch. And if you've liked my video, please, yeah, feel free to leave a comment or like it, so I know that it's something that you're interested in. I got to say, there's a lot of closet astrologers out there. I have quite a few people come up to me when I'm out and about to say that they appreciate my videos, and I really love hearing that. It makes me feel, yeah, like really warm, because it's a gift to be able to share this with other people. I think that I love being able to have something else to believe in that's kind of out of this mundane world in a way. So thank you for that. All right, take care and enjoy the full moon vibes. Ka kite.